Long before science, as we know it today, existed, a few ancient thinkers began to question the myths and legends that they had previously held as explanations of the world. They didn't simply accept that the world was being held up on the back of some giant creature, or that the stars in the sky were just gods. What if instead, they questioned, the universe had laws to it, laws that could be discovered through reason and observation? Thales from the last video, the father of philosophy, was the first person to question these ideas. He radically proposed that the world could be explained without using divine intervention, suggesting that water was the fundamental substance of the universe. But his ideas were only the beginning. Today, we turn to Anaximander and Anaximenes, two philosophers who would carry forward the legacy of Thales, pushing beyond his theories to open new doors to explain the universe. So join me today as we continue our journey through the history of philosophy. Anaximander was a man of vivid imagination. His ideas seemed like divine revelation. He was an inventor known for making the first sundial that would mark the seasons, and a traveler who helped establish a Milesian colony on the Black Sea. And he was also something of a revolutionary. Anaximander had the audacity to suggest that the sun was made of pure fire and actually larger than the earth itself. He proposed that the moon reflected the sun's light, and that rain was the result of water that had evaporated into the sky. But perhaps his most radical idea to those around him was that the earth was suspended in an infinite void, neither rising nor falling because it had no need to. While none of these ideas are exactly scientifically accurate, for a man in ancient Greece to have been able to say any of these things by mere speculation and be so close to the truth is absolutely amazing. Whether by sheer genius or extraordinary luck, Anaximander's insights marked a huge leap in the development of man's philosophy. But what truly set Anaximander apart was the way that he expanded Thales' concept of the arche. While Thales believed that the arche, the fundamental principle of the universe, was water, Anaximander took a more abstract approach. He proposed that the arche was the apeiron, the infinite. And it's from the infinite that everything comes and everything returns to. Later, the philosopher Simplicius summarized this thought. Where things have their origin, there too their passing away occurs according to necessity. They pay justice and reparation to one another for their injustice in conformity with the ordinance of time. This was an extraordinary concept. Anaximander was suggesting that the universe operated according to laws, and that when those laws were disrupted, the universe would take action to come back into balance, much like justice being served to restore order after a wrongdoing. He was no longer suggesting that the arche was merely something finite, but something infinite, not something made of physical substance, but something immaterial. This was a giant leap from Thales' previous view of the world. Anaximenes, Anaximander's student, did agree with his teacher that the arche was infinite, but he disagreed in its nature. Like Thales, he believed that the arche was a material substance, but instead of believing that it was water, he proposed a new substance, which he called air. Air, spelled A-E-R, is like a dense vapor. Anaximenes theorized that this air could expand or contract to form the different substances that we interact with. When it expanded beyond a certain point, it became fire, and when it condensed, it would become earth and stone. He believed that motion was eternal, and that air was responsible for the movement, an idea that marked a significant departure from previously held beliefs that everything that moved must have been animated or had an anima or a soul. While Thales did not explain how water could be transformed into different substances, Anaximenes offered a solution. Anaximenes realized that if he blew air at his hand with compressed lips, like so, it felt cool to the touch. However, if he did it with his mouth more open, like this, the air would feel hot. This was Anaximenes' reasoning for thinking that compressed air formed cool substances and therefore more solid substances, whereas when air was not compressed, it created heat and eventually fire. In that sense, hot and cold weren't just temperatures to him. They described the state of matter itself. Though this may seem rudimentary today, this was a massive step forward. Anaximenes pulled together all of these natural phenomena that he was observing into one single theory, grounded in observation. While Thales began the search for the arche and placed that idea into the heads of philosophers for centuries to come, we saw how Anaximander expanded that idea to include the infinite, which up until then, at least in record, was not talked about. What we're witnessing is philosophy taking steps further and further away from myth and legend and moving towards pure reason and observation. Even at the very beginning of philosophical history, the seeds of philosophy that we recognize today were being planted. Understanding the history of what brought us from those early ideas to the present day is vital. After all, if we don't know where we've been, how can we know where we're going? Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of The History of Philosophy, where we'll explore the life of everyone's favorite geometric philosopher, Pythagoras. But not just him, 2 others as well. In the meantime, have a great week.